Hello, good morning. Welcome to my channel, another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg. This is Sunday morning, April 14th. I am on my morning walk. I am currently in an abandoned golf course. This has been abandoned ever since I moved into my neighborhood a little over 2 years ago. I think it was abandoned a couple years before that. Anyway, it's not being used at all. People do walk around here occasionally, but I have it to myself this morning. And it's just, I'm sort of in a wooded area at this point. And you can sort of see the flat areas where there used to be golfing. And sorry about that sun. Sun's in the area, but okay. That's just where I'm walking. And unfortunately, there are developers who are planning to turn this into another housing community. And a little sad. I kind of like having this open, unused space. I know all the owners are really eager to get a revenue going in this spot. Well, anyway, my week is coming up on the reading. I have 2 projects that I'm working on. One is all about Holly, where I'm reading all the Holly Gibney books, where that character features in there by Stephen King. I have a little novella to read, If It Bleeds. After that, I have a book group book for my in-person book group, and that is going to be I believe it's called The Great Alone by Kistin. It's about a family living out in Alaska. And so those are the only 2 things that I have to read this week. I'm probably going to finish them up by Wednesday or Thursday at the latest. So I'll have some time to read whatever I want to. I don't know what I'm going to pick up next. So there's that. I'm also on my 4th BookTube prize for fiction in the quarterfinals. They're short little books, and they don't take me long to read. The longest was 300 pages, and the one I'm on now is an audiobook, and it's like a 7-hour audiobook, and I'll be done with that Monday. And those are my plans for the week, because after that audiobook, again, I don't have another audiobook queued up. So kind of interesting to see how I'll end up this week. It's a beautiful day for reading and relaxing on my sun deck. I have finished listening to the audiobook version of Loved and Missed by Susie Boydt. This is a British novel I read for the BookTube prize. So I can't talk about what I think about the book right now. I will show the cover. The cover, I think, is just a very odd looking cover. The baby's face just looks like it's a deformed baby, a mutant baby. And the woman just has this peculiar look to her. I don't know why they chose this artwork. It never really appealed to me. I have finished reading If It Bleeds by Stephen King. This is the novella of the same title in this collection of novellas. It is the 5th story of Holly Gibney. For my All About Holly reading group, we're reading all 6 books or stories featuring Holly Gibney. This is a character. Holly was originally featured in his novel Mr. Mercedes, and King admits that she was just going to be she was just going to be a throwaway character, that she was going to appear in one book and that was going to be it. But as it happens with writers, he kind of fell in love with this character and wanted to do more with her. She is, let's just say, emotionally disturbed in the books, at least the first book. She has lots of personal issues, almost to the autistic range, I think. And he takes her on a couple of adventures where she starts coming out of her shell and showing that, well, yes, she has emotional issues. She's actually a very intelligent and capable woman. And so now in this fifth story is sort of a follow-up to the last book that we read called The Outsider. And it would be tough, I think, reading this novella without having read The Outsider and probably the other three Holly Gibney books. So really, this is a collection part of a series. Lots of little details that he does not fill in the story are known to the reader because they, at least known to me, because I have read the other stories. And it follows sort of a peculiar format where you're hearing about that Holly has sent some information to a police detective friend because she's going on an investigation that may be life-threatening. And it's sort of a gimmick that he uses to increase, suspense, not suspension. I don't really think that gimmick worked too well. I also felt a little disappointed that it's just a little too much of a sequel to The Outsider. But it's great to see the character of Holly growing and expanding and just coming onto her own. So if you have read the other books, I can highly recommend picking up this novella. It's only about 200 pages, which I guess in some cases actually counts in a novel in and of itself. So if you like Stephen King and you like the character of Holly, this book is a definite pickup. If you've read none of them, I think you can give it a pass. This novella was collected in this book. There are, I believe, 3 or 4 other novellas that I have not read. I have finished Moonbound, Apollo 11 and the Dream of Spaceflight by Jonathan Fetter-Vorm. This is a graphic novel or graphic history about rocketry and the Apollo 11 landing on the moon. I was inspired to read this while talking to my buddies at the Spring of Adventure live streams, because week 4 for Spring into Adventure is to read a nonfiction adventure story. And this book was held up by Mark, and I thought that was kind of a curious choice. So I looked at my public library, and they had this graphic novel available. So this is what I read. As I said, this is the graphic history of the Apollo 11 mission, interspersed with the history of rocketry and the history of how people interact with the moon. So you get the first little chapter, which is the astronauts in space. Then you go back in history, way back in history, like prehistoric times, and what people thought about the moon. And then you have these interspersing chapters where you get a little bit of the Apollo 11 mission and a little bit of history, all the way up, through how our stages of rocketry were invented by a man in Russia, and they were used from there. And then you go into World War II. You have Werner von Braun and his efforts to get the V2 rocket to attack England in place. And there is a scene in this book that was very reminiscent, because I had read this piece of history in Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon, that there's a scene. No, it's not. I say it's a scene in the novel and a scene in this graphic novel, but it's a piece of history. And then you end with the actual Apollo 11 mission landing on the moon. And I thought this was a very good introduction to the science of rocketry and the moon landing. I am in no ways an expert on this. I did read The Right Stuff by Tom Wolfe a number of years ago, which dealt with a lot of the astronauts training program and the Apollo 11 landing, if I remember correctly. Well, anyway, this is a good little graphic history. And if you're interested in history of rocketry and the Apollo 11 moon landing, I can highly recommend this. I am continuing to plug away at Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. I'm at a very easy pace of 33 pages a day. That will put me to finish it in the 40-day period, which I had originally set out to do. And there are lots of good parts in this story. Right now, I am sort of in the middle of the Marius book, and the efforts of the young lawyer and the lady that he has fallen in love with. Now, it's not a huge spoiler, but his character Marius falls in love with a lady that he sees in the gardens of Paris. But of course, the rules of the Parisian gentleman means that he cannot approach her and introduce himself that well. So she's a mystery to him. And you are going to find out more about her as this chapter goes on. There's also some villainous paupers who are under a name. Now, the thing is, Victor Hugo likes to do this. He likes to introduce characters in a part of the book under one name. And they've actually been characters that were introduced earlier in the book under a different name because they're now living under assumed name. And you're reading through the book and say, wait a second. These look like these may be these characters. He does that all the time. He does that with Jean Valjean a number of times and with other characters. So I rather like it. I'm definitely scheduled to finish this on time. As I said, the digressions in the chapters are warming up to me. I'm beginning to see how they fit in the grander scheme because he's setting up society and history in a way to show what these characters are living through. And again, it'll be a couple more weeks till I finish this, but I'm really loving it. And that is a wrap for this week. I was also reading another novel for my in-person book group. I was about 250 pages in, and I took a little bit of a break. But you will see what that book is next week and get my opinions on what I think about living life rather in the rough. Thank you for watching, and keep on reading.